Thank you, PY.
You're welcome.
Wonderful. Well, as you all know, we are in our master class. So that means that while we're in the master class, we won't hear from Soul 21, so that we can use as much of this time as possible to study and discuss this text. We have a few questions. Two questions about this chapter, one about something that we covered last week and another about something that we'll get to this week. As a reminder, and you'll see it throughout the stream, we encourage you to send your questions to truthsunday@celebrationsc.org. I want to say no question is off limits, but no question is stupid, right? It's the question that you don't ask could be the one that not only helps you, but helps someone else. So we encourage you to jot down your questions and send them to us, and we'll do our best to incorporate them into the class time each week. So I think the first thing we should do is look at that question. We'll start there, and then we can move forward. So the first question we received is actually this one. Yes. Today you highlighted an affirmation from the book, I Am Pure Intelligence, Always Acting Intelligently, and said something about being able to affirm it without reservation. But we humans do not always act intelligently, much as we try. That's part of being human. So how to affirm this with no reservations? Well, first, I think let's go to the book and let's look at that passage again. So it was here under a new self-awareness. I am pure intelligence, always acting intelligently. And Barker writes, if you can say this without subconscious rejection of the fact, you are well along on the pathway of spiritual understanding. If the central idea involved here causes no conflict in your acceptance of yourself as intelligence, then you are ready to live effectively. You cannot go beyond your self-accepted image. As long as you underestimate yourself, you cannot succeed in life. Now he goes on and says, no person is stupid. Stupidity is only a misuse of intelligence in non-intelligent ways. And further, what he advises us is that in order to develop this consciousness, to be able to affirm I am pure intelligence, always acting intelligently, we, to the extent that we're not able to affirm that without reservation, which, by the way, that's not the admonishment. We recognize that as you're first coming in contact with this, this may not be something that you can readily accept. But he offers the spiritual mind treatment for that very reason, which supports us in beginning to accept it. What's beautiful about affirmative prayer and the spiritual mind treatment, we're literally treating our minds. We're treating those thoughts of doubt, those thoughts of hesitation, those thoughts of reservation. Now, the other thing I think is interesting, specifically to the question that was asked, is the idea that, well, humans make mistakes, try as we might to do otherwise. But what I find is interesting is that I believe that humanity, we have been taught to grossly underestimate ourselves, right? And so one of the reasons that it's harder to affirm this without reservation is because we're taught to think about and focus on our mistakes. I've shared this in the past. It came to my mind again. When I think about myself and as I was growing up, and this is no shade on my parents, because this is just the way most people operated. There was more of a production when I did something wrong or didn't do my best in school or whatever it may have been. There was more of a production around that, doing wrong, doing bad, you're in trouble, you're on punishment, versus when I did well. And what that taught me unconsciously, and it's reinforced all throughout the world, again, this is not about my parents, is that we need to focus on our mistakes. Right. And when you do wrong, you need to, just really be contrite, and you got to cry and wail and be guilty and shame. And right. There's this whole production that goes around that versus when we do well. And so then it makes sense that when we understand that that's how our society works. And again, we learn that from a very young age. That's why it's so hard to say, I am pure intelligence, always acting intelligently, and immediately thinking about our mistakes.
Absolutely. And there's also the awareness that because truth is true, it doesn't change because we have made mistakes.
Yes.
I am intelligence. Your body is acting intelligently, right? Though you may create in unintelligent ways, that still remains. The truth of you remains. I am pure intelligence, always acting intelligently. So maybe I made a decision that didn't feel like it was the smartest decision, but I still used intelligence in a way,
Yeah.
right? And so we're not wanting you to get caught up in what you didn't do correctly.
Right.
What we are focused in on and what is true about you no matter what,
Yeah.
right? And that's the difference. This is not about, oh, I made mistakes, and so how could that? That's not what it's saying. The reason it is the first thing that it talks about is self-awareness of what you really are,
Yeah.
as opposed to how you've acted and thought of yourself in the past,
Yeah.
right? Completely different, right? We're not asking you to put yourself up on a cross to admit everything that you've done that's not right.
Right.
We're asking you, can you sit in the awareness of what you really are? And it feels uncomfortable because our mind and our ego automatically takes us to where the mistakes were.
Yep. Yep.
And while I am having a human experience, I am a spiritual being that is infinite intelligence. Say that. When that mind wants to come and say, oh, well, I'm human. Yes, you're having a human experience, but you are a spiritual being having a human experience. And so that spirituality transcends the human experience.
Yes,
It
yes.
sustains you in your human experience,
Yes.
right? This is a great question because I know everybody, as soon as that comes up, right, I am pure intelligence, always acting intelligent. Really?
Right. And PY just hit on something beautiful, right? That when we understand that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, something to understand as well when it comes to affirmations. First of all, I am is your God name, right? I am is you're actually invoking your divinity, right? The divine part of you, the unaltered part of you, the always worthy part of you, right? So first of all, I'm not speaking to my flesh and blood actually when I say I am. Right? That's the first thing, right? I am pure intelligence. So I'm calling on my spiritual birthright. I'm calling on and calling forth and directing my attention to that which is divine, perfect, whole, and complete within me, right? That thing that will be when this body disintegrates, that thing still will be. That's what I'm invoking. Right? If we look also at scripture where we read, before you were formed in your mother's womb, I knew you. That means there's a you that exists before, again, this flesh and blood, all the things that came together, the cells that multiplied and created blood and bone and organs, right? There's a you before the physical you. That's what we're speaking to and invoking when we say I am. That's very important with any affirmation, right? Because if you think, and I know some people do this, right? They get affirmations, or they heard you're supposed to use affirmations, and it becomes an ego thing. I am powerful. I am worthy, as though your flesh and blood is powerful or worthy, and that's not what an affirmation is here to do.
Right. It's here to reconnect you with the truth of you that transcends the physical experience of you. He's going to talk throughout the book about senses.
Yeah.
He's going to get into that. And it's important that we understand it. We're not downplaying the human, but we're making you remember what is divine about you.
Right.
The big you.
Right.
Right? That spiritual you, that capital S self, not the lowercase s self. Right?
Yeah.
Good question.
And, Louise Hay reminds us that we're speaking these affirmations because we don't currently believe them, right? Right. So that's the other piece, right? That in the beginning, right? In the beginning, I love the process I go through when I'm starting with a new prayer, right? Because I can see all the doubts and the fears and the buts, right? All of that is happening, and I'm like, oh, wonderful, because I know that sometime later I'm going to realize that I've started to accept these words that I didn't accept before. I'm starting to make room and open up something within myself to allow these words to become true when I didn't fully think they were true for me before.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we get our butt out the way.
Shout out to Reverend Ike.
Yep. And we now align ourselves with the truth.
Yes, yes.
It might take you a minute, but once the seed is planted, you just keep watering it by saying it, right? And little by little, it will start to be so natural to you that you would have never thought that you could have doubted that truth about you in the first place, right? It might not happen the first time or the 50th time,
Right.
but you keep watering the seed that you've planted, and don't uproot it with another seed, another thought, right? Don't just get in there and dig around in it and take it out of the ground, right? We keep watering it.
Absolutely.
We keep loving on ourselves compassionately when we doubt it, but we keep affirming it as true, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So our second question, again, is related to part of the reading that we haven't gotten to, so we'll address that when we get there. But let's get into the reading. Where we left off last Sunday was right here at Watch Your Alibis. As a thinker, you determine your experience. There is nothing to oppose you but your own subconscious patterns of inferiority and frustration. Make mental notes of your alibis and excuses for your mistakes. These will reveal to you the patterns in your subconscious mind which need to be negated by you. The spirit within you wants you to see yourself as you have created yourself. Seeing your own self-creation, you can then, through mental treatment, gradually whittle away your deeply rooted failure patterns and replace them with a new self-acceptance concept that will cause you to create what you want in your world. Ernest Holmes, the founder of religious science, wrote, "There is no sin but a mistake, and no punishment but an inevitable consequence." This is actually very important, right? We can never say this enough, right? Sin is a mistake, right? It's just an error in need of correction, right? And then also, there's no punishment but an inevitable consequence. What does that mean? It means that there's cause and effect. God is not punishing you. God is not saying, see, I'm going to fix her. See, I'm going to fix him. They were down here doing wrong, right? But we recognize that there's a consequence, right? There's a sequence of events that happens based on a cause, right? You move a domino, it hits the next one, right? It's not a judgment that the next domino falls, right? If we look back and we see someone push the first domino, that's why it's happening. It's not a punishment, it's not a judgment.
And right, I mean, and the same idea that cause created you as an effect, a beautiful effect, right? And that's just the way it works. It's just another demonstration of how law and principle works.
Absolutely.
Cause and effect.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Absolutely.
That's it.
That's it. God can only do for you what you do for yourself. You may be one of those persons who thinks he or God cannot help being what it is. Wake up right now to a great fact of life. You and you alone are responsible for your life. Intelligence created you and set you free on a path of self-discovery and self-decision. Your problems are unintelligence functioning in a field of intelligence. I want to highlight this again because this comes up over and over again. Last week, we highlighted the idea of unintelligent factors, right? Your problems are unintelligence functioning within a field of intelligence, right? Within a field of intelligence, right? So we know that clean water exists, right? Pure spring water exists, right? Even without human interaction trying to clean it and do all of those things, right? So there's a field of pure water. But we recognize if, for instance, if there's lead in the pipes that the water is flowing through, the problem is not the water.
Right.
Right? And so then the water becomes contaminated because of unintelligent factors or unintelligent functioning, in this case, the lead pipes. But the water began pure, pristine, and clean.
And can return to that when you either reroute the flow of the water through a new thought or put some new pipes in.
Lord have mercy. Yes, yes. So your problems are unintelligence functioning in a field of intelligence. They hurt because they are abnormal and unnecessary. Most people hug their problems to their bosom. They place the tentacles of worry and fear around the problem so that it cannot go away. They give their whole attention to it. They think it and feel it. Then they rethink it and refeel it. These people glory in their martyrdom and believe themselves to be made virtuous because of their sufferings. This goes exactly to what I was saying, this idea of how we've learned what punishment is and looks like, right? And again, many of us growing up had various experiences. I know some people, their parents would make them write an essay about what they did wrong, or there's even I'm thinking about Bart Simpson, writing on the chalkboard, I will not, blah, 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 We have all of these ways that we've seen and learned in our own growing up or in society that we've been taught to focus unnecessarily on the problem, right? We've been taught to give our whole attention to it. We've been taught to think it and feel it and rethink it and refeel it as though somehow that is going to make us do better.
Right. And that is an unintelligent use of mind, right? Because the mind was designed to think. Unfortunately, and I tell my clients this all the time, we think that if we keep thinking about the problem, that we're fixing the problem. In fact, we're just worrying about the problem. So that is an unintelligent use of mind, right?
Yep.
We keep ruminating over it and ruminating, and we think that thinking is fixing. It's not. It's just using the mind to keep thinking about what you were thinking about before, right? And as the ego and as the way it works, it likes to stay in a place of what it knows.
Yeah.
And if all you know is problem, and you identify yourself with problem, it will keep being your identity.
Yep.
Take that in. Now, why do we talk about this? Not to blame you or shame you. We talk about this to empower you to use your mind in a different way. Intelligently.
Yeah.
Right? If you have judgment around the word intelligence and unintelligence, we'll let that go. Right? It's not saying stupid. It's saying intelligent or unintelligent as opposition to each other. Right? So we're not judging what you did. We're saying that there's another way of living in opposition to the way you've been living or thinking or being or creating.
Absolutely. Problems do not improve you. When you know the truth, you are set free from the untruth. When you know yourself as evolving, expanding intelligence, you set yourself free from your former patterns of unintelligence. You no longer blame the world, the nation, or your family. Most certainly, you do not place the blame on God. Neither do you wallow in self-pity, self-deceit, or self-depreciation. Jesus was not interested in the past causation in the mind of the man at the pool of Bethesda. He said to him, "Arise and take up thy bed and walk," Mark 2:11. And the man did just that. Instantly, the man was cleared of years of negative thinking, years of worry and defeat. It was a new man who went on his way, rejoicing in his health. If you know the story, right, when Jesus basically asks him, "Hey, what's going on here?" the man starts lamenting and going, "Oh, well, I've been standing by the pool and everybody get in the pool before me and nobody helped me." And Jesus was just like, "Well, is it easier to just take up your bed and walk? We can do that too," right? It was a new man who went on his way, rejoicing in his health. You can do the same thing when you reconceive yourself as intelligence in action. Everything creative responds within your mind when you give it intelligent decision. All improvement is dependent upon seeing yourself as being greater than you are. Then your potentials stir within you and your creative capacities unfold. By your own inner self, you are led aright and you glimpse the you that you are going to be.
I love this. I highlighted this last part. All improvement is dependent upon you seeing yourself as being greater than you are. And in my mind, I put the word currently are.
Yeah.
You currently believe you are.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. That's very important. I love that. Cause and effect. An unintelligent use of mind can only produce an unintelligent result. PY just gave us a clear understanding, and I think that's important, right? To just understand intelligent versus unintelligent. Unintelligent doesn't mean dumb or stupid, right? It just means not the most beneficial way, right?
The opposite of
means.
intelligent.
Right, just the opposite of intelligent.
Right.
You do not blame the sun. Hear this, y'all. I hope this rocked you as you read it. You do not blame the sun for the shadow. The sun is not causing the shadow. An object or person blocking the sun causes the shadow. The shadow is the result of an obstruction. Your problem is the result of an obstruction in your own thinking. You are not letting life flow through you in the way life really works. Divine intelligence has never created a problem for any of its creations. Like the sun, it is forever itself, forever giving of itself, and unaware of the misuse that we are making of this great gift. Standing with your back to the sun, you can watch your shadow. Standing with your face to the sun, you see it not. Not seeing your shadow, it has no existence in your awareness. Therefore, it has no reality in your experience.
And this is beautiful because, this is not negating that there is a shadow self, right? This is not that psychological understanding of the shadow. This is talking about using the example of how the sun works, right? We're not saying that there's no darkness, that you've not had any bad experiences. This is purely talking about how the sun works, okay? So let's not go there.
And so he goes on, problems are the shadows created by humanity when we refuse to face the light of intelligence and therefore makes wrong decisions and abides in the halls of worry, confusion, and defeat. All right, so we're talking about problems and how problems arise. And this metaphor is very beautiful for us to understand this, because we understand how shadows are cast based on the light of the sun, but we don't put any attention on that, right? And if we want to, if a shadow is in the way, if you're a photographer or something, you're casting unwanted shadows, to move or readjust the light in order to change that experience, right? And so problems are the same way, right? There's an obstruction in our thinking that casts the shadow. And so just as we know how to shift that shadow, we would remove the obstruction. So it's the same in our own minds.
I love that analogy of the photographer. The photographer doesn't get upset that it recognizes that there was a shadow. It just moves. It doesn't say, if I were better, there wouldn't be no shadow.
Right.
It doesn't talk about the last time it stood and there was a shadow. That person just knows that shadow is not what I want. Let me move into the light so that I can get, unless I'm filming shadow,
Right.
unless I'm using that as part of the image I'm creating, there's no need for it. So let me move so that I don't have it obstructing my view and my beautiful image.
Yes.
Love it.
The problem could not exist if you did not exist to create it and experience it. Shift your attention from your concern with the problem and give the same amount of thinking and feeling to your awareness of yourself as intelligence in action. Similar theme. Again, we have been trained unconsciously to put so much attention on the problem that even when you hear this and read this, you might be thinking, well, I don't even know, how do I put the same amount of thinking and feeling to my awareness of intelligence and action? So again, this is why this affirmation is important. This is why the spiritual mind treatment that he offers, the first treatment in this chapter, we start to use these. This is a way to shift your attention. Go to that spiritual mind treatment and affirm it. When you recognize that you're thinking about the problem, that you're shaming yourself and guilting yourself and feeling bad and lamenting and going over every detail of what you think you could have done differently. None of that matters, right? The only thing that matters is, okay, what am I choosing to think and feel now? Because that's what's going to support me in accessing the new idea to get me out of this situation.
Right. There is no glory in martyrdom. We've all grown up with the story of Jesus and his sacrifice for all of our sins. And so we think that if Jesus took on that burden, the least I can do is carry my burden. But that's not the part of the story that you need to focus on. It's the resurrection. Right. It's the releasing. It's the letting go of the burden that you have been carrying. Yeah. We are not expected to do what Jesus did in that way. No. Right? We are not expected to carry it that way. That belief in carrying the burden and the problem and all that is associated with it has been conditioned into us, is now present in our subconscious mind. And if we think back to the ways in which people across the world and throughout history have been enslaved, it has been a use of that story to keep us enslaved. To keep us thinking, if I carry this burden, I will receive my reward in heaven. Mind you, and meanwhile, those oppressors of whatever time and place continue to do what? Oppress. What do we continue to do? Carry the burden. So we keep the cycle of this going as opposed to, wait a minute, let me use my intelligence in a new way.
Hallelujah.
Right?
Yes, yes. Yes, yes. All right, so we shift our attention from our concern with the problem and give the same amount of thinking and feeling to your awareness of yourself as intelligence in action. Then a right idea will happen in your thinking, and you will triumph over the enemies of your own preconceived wrong ideas. You are a new cause bringing forth a new effect. That line right there reminds me of Joe Dispenza so much. For if you studied Joe Dispenza with me or read Joe Dispenza, this is the opportunity, what we're doing, becoming a new cause. When we become a new cause, we inevitably create a new effect. The new effect is one you like and one which benefits you, for it was born in intelligence and was nurtured by your own intelligent planning. Will it work? The critic says that this method of redirected mental action is too easy. He or she feels that a more profound system would work better. This is due to the false concept that profundity is indicative of spirituality. Oh my God, I love this.
I do too.
This echoes so much that we talk about, right? We think it has to be deep in order for it to be powerful, right? And there's a whole lot of folk out here being deep that actually ain't got no power.
Right, and that's profundity, right? It's the intensity of that experience, the intensity of my misery, right? And then I get to teach from the intensity of my misery as opposed to from the solutions and the ease of how life is supposed to flow.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. It is not true that the more highly we educate the intellect, PY talks about this before the meditation every Sunday, yes, yes. The more highly we educate the intellect, the fewer problems we shall have. There would not be a problem on the face of the earth if this were so, right? Because humanity has amassed a lot of knowledge. Humanity is focused on the intellect, right? There are more people living now with more knowledge and more know-how than ever before in the history of this planet. Our problems have not lessened. They have intensified. The simplicity of Jesus was superseded by the complexity of Paul.
I love that.
The simplicity of the Nazarene was interpreted by the scholars, and in their many interpretations, the clear, correct, original instruction was lost.
The easy instruction.
Yes. Jesus' concept, change your thought and thereby change your experience, was lost in the theological systems guaranteeing a future heaven and a future hell. Today was lost in tomorrow. The past was hallowed and made good when so little of it was really good. The right thinking message of Jesus is a today technique for a today world. Yes, this teaching will work. As you introduce creative new ideas into the universal intelligence that is mine, you bring forth what you want when you want it.
Right. It's supposed to be easy. Why would unconditional love make it hard? Right? It's supposed to be easy. It's supposed to flow. And we have access to all this knowledge. We could Google anything. I could say, hey, Siri, right now, and get answers. I could get information. I could get dates. I could get times. I could solve problems in that way in terms of mathematical equations. But does that take away what I'm currently feeling as worry, doubt, and fear? It's just information. And usually if you're Googling, if you're doing the Google MDing, you're making it worse.
WebMD.
I kind of combine it because we Googling and we doing WebMD too, right? And the more knowledge we have, the worse it is.
Oh, yeah. Been there, done that.
Been there, done that.
Have what you want. There's nothing wrong in having what you want, provided it is moral and harms no other person.
Right.
There is no virtue in self-deprivation. Somebody needs to highlight that and hear that.
I definitely highlighted that.
There is no virtue in self-deprivation. Western nations now state that there is no virtue in poverty. They are seeking to wipe out poverty, to give all people the ways and means to have full and creative lives. The day is past when theology can proclaim that the poor are nearer the kingdom than the rich. The divine economy is premised on a divine equality. I love that. So often, I know we've received these questions many times when we're talking and teaching about prosperity and trying to wrap your minds around prosperity when there's so much greed. And we must understand that first, that actually much of the capitalistic system and much of what's amassed is based on greed, therefore lack, right? There not being enough. But the divine economy is premised on divine equality, right? All having what we all need to live and thrive and grow. Every need met, right?
Right.
That's the divine economy.
And if we look at what's been happening even in our own country with our ability to fund things, wars and other things like that, we know that there's more than enough. And if we use that same insight and ability to generate more than enough in an instant and turn it in the direction of what we think of as problems, there would be no problems.
Yep.
Right? Not saying that we shouldn't support. What we're saying is, if we can do it in that way, we can do it for the things that continue to plague us as problems in this country and in this world.
Each person is endowed with intelligence to act in ways of intelligence to bring forth their individual world of plenty and peace. Although an idea, system, or philosophy is profound, it is not necessarily true. Nothing is true unless it works. And it has to work for you, not for someone else. Your mind, being the center and circumference of your experience, can and will create what you want when you think and feel what you want. As long as you are thinking and feeling what you do not want, your mind will continue to create your private, self-accepted hell on earth. This is one of those fundamental teachings that cannot be said enough, right? Focusing on what you want versus what you do not want. We've all done it. You've probably heard yourself say it, right? You can ask, well, what do you want? What kind of relationship do you want? What kind of person? Well, I don't want to be with someone that. Well, I don't want someone that. What kind of job do you want? What kind of company do? Well, I don't want to work for a boss that. Well, I don't want to have to commute. That's usually how our minds, what happens. That's how we've been conditioned. And again, we have to think about this. All the ways that we've been conditioned to focus on the problem or focusing on what we don't want. As long as you are thinking and feeling what you do not want, your mind, unfortunately, will continue to create your private, self-accepted hell on earth.
Right. And, you've seen us talk about creating a base. Sometimes you got to start where you are. And usually, always, you start where you are. Right? I know what I don't want. So I can acknowledge and I can write about and I can think about what I don't want. But at some point, that unintelligent use has to become intelligent. You've got to turn in the direction of the sun. At some point, you've got to turn in the direction of what you want. If you are to ever receive what you want and to eliminate your own self-created hell on earth.
Yeah. And that's why that is such an intelligent tool, right? To list out your don't wants. If that's what's coming up first, you list those. And then what's the opposite of that? Because that's actually telling you what you do want, right? And then once you have the list of what I do want, you throw away the don't want list and you put your focus of attention on this is what I want.
You never refer to the what you don't want again. I've told that story a million times about what I wanted in relationship. And in the middle of the energy of the unwanted, I had to focus on it because it was there. It would have been a lie to not acknowledge what was there. But I immediately, once I had listed the unwanted, I turned towards the sun and I focused immediately from that point forward on what I wanted.
I love it.
Right?
Reverse your mental image. I am writing this book for those people who want to create their own good and not have it created for them by others. They are willing and able to accept the responsibility for their own mental actions. They refuse to dodge the alibis induced within their own consciousness. They face themselves, correct their own thought, and create their own heaven on earth. They have made the decision to be the creative centers of their own experiences. They no longer blame or censure. They do not believe as others believe. They reverse their thinking and make certain it agrees with the goals of their decision. They hold fast to the line. They do not waver. They know, and what they know causes their good to happen. So this is a beautiful opportunity, excuse me, to check in, because it's important that you at best aspire to be this person, even if you're not this person now.
Absolutely.
Right. And to the extent that you're here, right, to the extent that you're connected to CSC, I know that is your desire. Right. And so it's very important to name this and understand this. Right, that you're choosing to live in a certain way, to no longer believe as others believe. I read that and I thought about one of my favorite scenes in The Matrix, where Commander Locke says to Morpheus, Morpheus, everyone doesn't believe what you believe. And he says, my beliefs don't require them to.
Right.
See, that's that play, right? It's like, I believe what I believe, and I'm not requiring y'all to believe something so that I can have the outcome that I desire, because I've already made the decision, and I'm facing the sun. Mm-hmm. I'm facing the sun, right? That's the end of the story. Love that. Let's go on. You can do this. You may say that you cannot, but you can. I'll say that again. You can do this. Mm-hmm. You may say that you cannot, but you can. During the past 50 years of my teaching the science of mind, I have seen with my own eyes the improved status of hundreds of persons who faced up to themselves and corrected their mental procedures. The chronic invalid who decided to be healthy. The chronic failure who decided to be a success. The chronic lonely soul who decided to open the communications of love and let himself be loved. All kinds of troubles have been met, faced, and resolved. And we echo these words from Raymond Charles Barker as we have seen this in our own lives, as we have seen this throughout the past 9 years of CSC, seeing those that have made the decision and made the change. What about the failures? Of course, there have been hundreds of failures. No science will work unless the person applying it follows the laws of that science. The half-hearted in any field accomplish little. Those whose enthusiasm wanes soon adjust again to their own complaints. No single medicine cures all who are ill of the same disease. Only the curable can be cured. And that idea of the curable means that's the willingness. Mm-hmm. Right? That's the willingness.
And again, please be compassionate with yourself as you read these things. When it talks about health, because that's a big one for a lot of us, mm-hmm. you could take it on as, I should have improved my health by now. It's not saying that. It's not judging you or chastising you because you're not well. Mm-hmm. It's giving you another possibility. It's reminding you of the ultimate truth of wellness, mm-hmm. of wholeness, mm-hmm. right? That you get to move in the direction of, no matter mm-hmm. how long it takes you.
Right.
Does it mean you should do it without medication? No. It just means that perfect health is what I am, mm-hmm. and I will use those things to move me in the direction of perfect health, whether it's medication or treatment mm-hmm. or whatever it is, mm-hmm. right? That's what it's saying.
Yeah. Unfinished business. Creation is continuous. We exist in a continuum of creative process. Modern thinkers would like to believe that God has gone out of business. This is an impossibility. The infinite mind has to be an infinite process. Being infinite, it cannot be limited by its own creation. It cannot be conditioned by person, situation, or limitation. These factors are humanity's creation, and they exist temporarily in the infinite, as does the wave on top of the sea. The sea remains itself as the wave appears and disappears. The mind of God is eternal cause. It's an eternal process of thinking within itself, upon itself, creating ideas of itself, which it projects into form through the law of itself. The infinite is forever in the process of self-discovery. This self-discovery, individualized in humanity, is called evolution. We are the infinite unfolding its newly discovered aspects. Mm-hmm. For those of you who read, listen, watch, study Abraham Hicks, This is what being on the leading edge is about. This very same idea that Abraham talks about, right? We individualized, the self-discovery is individualized in humanity. That's called evolution. We are the infinite unfolding its newly discovered aspects. Into our consciousness is pouring at every instant a flood of new ideas born of the spirit, the infinite mind. These are the living waters which Jesus said if we would drink therefrom, we would never thirst again. There is no more indecision when the inner fount of ideas is sought and found, praised and explored.
You're never stuck. You're never stuck in your past decisions, quote unquote failures, whatever limitation you feel. You're constantly evolving. You're constantly moving in the direction of a new unfolding of self, a new unfolding of your power, a new unfolding of your power to choose, to create, right? That's what we're talking about.
The five senses. We seek too little within ourselves for right ideas and correct answers. We accept the testimony of our five senses as being the reality of life, yet every mystic and teacher, every religion and philosophy have explained with care that the factual world should always be questioned, and I would say the world of our senses. Because a thing is a fact does not mean it is a reality. The search for ideas from within your own consciousness brings satisfaction. It keeps you evolving in consciousness and unfolds the new, the fresh, and the different. It is progress. The repetition of that which is known is not progress. What you know indicates what is still to be known. No person has ever known enough. Jesus told his followers that they would be led into all truth and do greater works than he did. His was an awareness of the eternal evolutionary process of ideas unfolding in humanity as humanity. The accumulation of things and the arrangement of situations leads to false security. These please the senses and lull the creative demands that arise from within. They proclaim that all is well on the surface, while underneath, in the depth of humanity's consciousness, retrogression proceeds. Consciousness must be fresh if decisions are to be right. And this is beautiful. When I read this, part of what I think about is any success that we've already had. Right? We can rest on our laurels. We can amass things, and then we don't remain open to new ideas. Right? I think this is the only reason why we've created this false idea that artists and musicians have a genius period and then it ends. Right? This is exactly what, right? They've forgotten this reality that they are pure intelligence, always acting intelligently and connected to this infinite mind that is, as the Tao Te Ching says, endlessly pulsating, endlessly creating. And so it's like, oh, right, I'm kind of out of ideas.
Right. Or we set the goal to accumulate things, thinking that that will make us something, as opposed to knowing that it's nice to have things. We all like things, but my goal is not necessarily just to have things.
Right.
My goal is to be continually expanding and creating as infinite intelligence in existence, right?
Right. We use those things as proof of arrival.
Of proof of arrival.
Yeah, all of that.
Proof of goodness, proof of worthiness, right? And that's not what it is. It's just the mind being able to create, expressing and experiencing cause and effect. It's doing all of those things as a master metaphysician would do.
Yes, yes. Nourishment for the mind. New ideas are as essential for the mind as food and water are for the physical body. You cannot progress on the basis of the ideas that are now directing your thinking, feeling nature. You can stand where you are amidst the demonstrations of your past causation and watch the cracks appear in the mortar of your accumulations. This is the other beautiful part, right? That everything in the physical world deteriorates, right? I don't care what I love to think about, luxury cars or luxury goods from the 80s that, you couldn't convince somebody to take for $5 now, right? You can run hither and fro to patch up the present, to hold it as it is, but life will always win out in the long run. Only new ideas arising in consciousness from the inner fount of the inner mind will make certain your pathway is in progressive revelation. You need new ideas, new motivations, and new horizons of accomplishment. I need them as much as you do. Life has already given them to us through the unfinished business of the infinite mind. They await our attention. They are seeking us as open doors through which they can appear in material form. They need us as much as we need them.
And they will flow easily to and through us as long as we don't get stuck.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not this constant, we're not trying to grind to get new ideas. We're just staying open to the fact that that's how it operates. Infinite intelligent, being intelligence is always creating, and it can always create through you, right? So you're never stuck, in accumulation or deficit.
Right. And so he gives us another spiritual mind treatment to use to welcome new ideas into our awareness. And is this, here it is. I exist in and am forever one with the infinite spirit, the infinite mind. This mind is forever evolving new ideas of itself, and these ideas are in my consciousness now. I am the means by which they appear. These ideas I now welcome. All subconscious opposition to them is now negated in my mind. I want, need, and have God's fresh ideas. They are my mental nourishment. They give me new directions. They lead me to right decisions. Amen, Ashe, and so it is. And so this is a spiritual mind treatment that you can use as you're reading this and hearing this. And you may be in a space of needing new ideas, whether it's in your business, whether it's in your studies, whether it's in your career, whether it's just for something in your life, something related to your finances. I'm always just amazed at the fresh and new ideas that are emerging in that way. And there are all sorts of wonderful financial instruments that are coming forth that we get to make use of. These are new ideas, right? Not resting on how it was or what people did in the past. And in many cases, there are more equitable ideas that are coming forth that are bringing more people to the table. We continue. Reject what you do not want. The decision to let go of that which has completed its course in your experience is even more important than the decision to welcome new ideas. I'm going to read that again. The decision to let go of that which has completed its course in your experience is even more important than the decision to welcome new ideas.
That's powerful.
Because it's present, right? You have to release that thing
to make room.
And to make room for the new thing, right?
And even, especially if what you're letting go is an old sense of yourself, right? We want to be somebody different, but we still holding on to who we were in the past, right? And if you really want to move in the direction of some new unfolding, there's parts of it that still serve you, take those. But there are many parts that no longer serve you. The worry, the doubt, the unworthiness, all those things, let those go.
Yeah. You cannot walk forward by looking backward. New wine cannot be put into old bottles, for the Bible states that the old bottles will break. You intuitively know what should depart from your life. That's interesting, right? You already know what it is, and you know what needs to go. Every once in a while, a flash in your consciousness informs you of a once-alive idea that is now dead. The human mind dislikes change and puts off until tomorrow what it should release today. Decide right now on the ideas and situations that are no longer of benefit to you. Make a list of them. This is an assignment, if you didn't already do it. These are impediments on your pathway of success. Until they are dismissed and the consequences of their release are completed, your new ideas cannot appear in mind.
I love this because the mind does not like change. The human mind, not the infinite intelligence, not the real self. It likes change. But the human mind likes the familiar. And it feels uncomfortable in even the thought of change because it doesn't, in its understanding, know what's next. But infinite intelligence is never afraid of change because it knows that whatever is coming is for the good.
The power of the word no is tremendous. What you mentally say no to will begin to depart in ways of order and in ways of peace. And this is important, what you mentally say no to. See, a lot of us are out here actually in resistance and out here trying to push people away, but we actually haven't internally said no. because that internal no becomes a cause. It becomes, again, that first domino that's flipped over, right? And then everything else lines up in its path. Everything else falls in line with that cause. What you mentally say no to will begin to depart in ways of order and in ways of peace. See, that's the other thing. When you mentally say no, things begin to leave on their own. They begin to disappear. They begin to remove themselves orderly and in ways of peace. If you fighting and pushing, I said no. No, look, don't call me no more. I said no. If you're doing that, that means you have not mentally said no yet.
And let's be honest, since the power of choice and decision is ours, sometimes we might be saying no, but really we're not sure, or we're afraid of the no. There's a whole bunch of things that are operating that are preventing us from really embodying the no. And it creates chaos and confusion. Again, this is about order and peace. Your no, once you internalize it, creates order and peace, and it will flow away from you and something will take its place, right?
Right. And again, that's important. It says it will depart in ways of order and peace. That's
it won't
the thing.
Just disrupt your whole world.
Right. It doesn't have to be dramatic.
Right.
Again, television programs have taught us that when you say no or when you make a different choice, that it's going to be a problem or it's going to be a fight. Even if it ends up, they still leave. When you truly mentally say no, it will begin to depart in ways of order and peace. And I hope that helps somebody today.
I hope that, right. The decision to make a change can happen in order and in peace, right? It doesn't have to be drama or drama-filled, right? And it can be so easy that we've don't even understand how easy it can be. A no is a complete sentence, right?
Yes.
A no is a complete sentence, and it's okay to say no.
Yeah.
It's okay to release. It's okay to open to something new.
The failure to say no to completed situations eventually results in disrupting conditions that are unpleasant and unnecessary. The word no declared in mind eliminates all congestion. It is clear and direct to the point. The subconscious mind knows the word no as a law of elimination. It acts upon its release those ideas which no longer have creative life in them. The subconscious mind, having within it all subjective intelligence, proceeds to eliminate the idea which is cause and the effect which is the problem. It acts in intelligent and right ways to do this. What's coming to my mind now is thinking about when we're clearing out a clog, right? If you're using Drano or something like that, right? The word no is like that Drano, right? And you put that in the sink, it does its work, and the water begins to flow, right? You don't have to do anything else. Beautiful. How to do it? Try it. Take one problem that you want to solve. Make certain that you really want to be rid of it. Say aloud that you want to be rid of it, that it cannot continue in your life. Declare that this decision is final and irrevocable. Mentally picture yourself as no longer having the problem. Get the feeling that the problem is gone and shall never return. Stay in this mood for several minutes. Then change your whole trend of thinking to something creative and interesting. Think something that is pleasing to you. The rest of the day or evening, watch your thoughts so that you do not interfere with the subconscious process of elimination of that old condition. Every time you begin to rethink the problem, stop and shift your attention to the fact that it no longer exists in your world. Never worry about it again, or you will be reclaiming it, reactivating it. And this is unfortunately what many of us do. Always, your momentary consideration of it must be that it has gone and can never return. It is dead and buried. More than that, it has no existence in you or your affairs. Before going to sleep at night, thank the God you believe in that the problem has disappeared. The next day, keep up this creative process. Say to your subconscious mind, my subconscious mind is a function of the universal mind. It obeys my word and acts upon it. I have declared the dissolution of this condition. I now reaffirm my decision. I no longer want, need, nor have this negative situation. It has gone into nothingness. It no longer has power over me. I recall it to my mind no more. I am free. Praise God, I am free. Indwelling mind, you have now given me my freedom from it.
Yes, yes. Another beautiful treatment. And the thing that he says and how to do it, you see here that he says that it could continue, right? So no one is expecting you to say no if this is a new way of being to you. And automatically, yes, that is a possibility. And yes, that can happen. But it's also saying that don't beat yourself up. If it continues, you bring yourself back. The moment you become aware, you decide again what you have decided previously.
Absolutely.
Right? You don't be like, oh, it didn't work. Oh, look at me. I can't get this. Oh, I knew this wouldn't work. Right? None of that. You lovingly and compassionately, okay, I'm learning how to do this. Let me do it again. Let me move through this process again and again until it becomes my new way of being.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's see. There's one more thing we want to get to, and as it relates to the question, I'm just looking at the second question. I'm looking at time. Intelligence is inviolate. Thank God the universe is foolproof. Many have sought out inventions to upset the cosmic order, and all they have done is destroy their own peace of mind and comfort. Unless your thinking is premised on the intelligence of life itself, you will continue in the valley of struggle and strain. You will create your problems through wrong decisions, and your frustrations will multiply. All of this is unnecessary. Reminds me of A Course in Miracles, this need not be. Right? There is one mind in continuous creation, and you are a resident in it. It created you in order to act through you. It has given you the equipment you need to live effectively and with a minimum of trouble. But you have to think as the universal mind thinks. You have to work mentally and emotionally as it works. There is one basic mental law. What you place in your subconscious mind must appear as your experience. Your subconscious mind acts as a law of creation. Why it does this, no one knows. It is automatic and impersonal. It functions this way in every person, regardless of race, color, or creed. It is not dependent upon intellect, knowledge, or reason or wisdom. It is a law. It is inviolate, just as the mind which functions through it is inviolate. To the metaphysician, this mind and this law are the two fundamentals of living. And this takes us back to our January series. And if this is new, I encourage you to go back to that series to really understand how the mind works and how these pieces work. In other words, what you think into your subconscious mind. This mind accepts your thought and acts upon it. It cannot do otherwise. It is its nature to act this way. You cannot think and feel negatively over a period of time and have positive situations maintained in your experience. It's very important, over a period of time.
Yeah, that's very important.
The law of the subconscious can only bear the kind of fruit based on the seed ideas you have given it. Jesus said you could not gather figs from thistles. Paul called this sowing and reaping. The Hermetic teaching stated that what goes in must come out. All are saying the same thing. And I'm going to go on so we can get to this question because it's about this next section, all related. Decide to control your life. If you decide to take control of your life and determine what will take place in your everyday living and creative planning for the future, you need the knowledge just presented. Your control depends upon your conscious awareness that your individual subconscious mind is a law of cause and effect. Nothing has ever happened to you or taken place around you that was not the result of your subconscious mind. That is a big statement, but it is true. You may mentally argue that it is not so, but eventually you will realize that it is so. Okay, so the question that we received was about this very section. And the question, quoting that part, nothing has ever happened to you or taken place around you that was not the result of your subconscious mind. I've heard this message before from others, but I've also heard some speak on how this is actually harmful to believe in. Example, asking someone what they have been thinking after finding out they have cancer comes off as rude and judgmental and nowhere near helpful. Is there something within this message that I'm not understanding properly? Is there a more loving way to apply this to my life?
Great question.
Great question. And this echoes so much of what we have taught and continue to teach about. going back to January again, the sermon that I gave, The Positive Knower, I spoke to this very idea, using the example of a woman who had a miscarriage, and the advice to her was about positive thinking, right? And we know how incredibly unloving and problematic that is. If we think about, as PY and I were talking, if we think about one of the stories about Jesus with the fish and the loaves, you have a crowd of people that are hungry and not enough food. And he didn't, say, immediately go to the disciples or the people and say, well, your subconscious mind is the reason you're hungry or the reason you don't have food, right? He wasn't so heavenly minded that he was of no earthly good, right? And immediately went to these heavenly ideas when the reality was the people needed food, right? And so he addressed that need. Now, this statement is absolutely true. Nothing has ever happened to you or taken place around you that was not the result of your subconscious mind. Now, when I first read this, I wrote a note, and I want to share this note that I put in here. This is, you all can't see it all. I'll just read it to you. This is different than saying it's your fault.
Yes.
We receive so much useless and harmful ideas in our subconscious mind long before we come to the awareness that we can choose the ideas we entertain, accept, and embody. So, yes, it's the result of your subconscious mind, but we also have to understand, and he writes about this, I believe in the next section, the next couple paragraphs, all of the information that we receive from 0 to 6, all of the things that have been planted in our subconscious mind, one of the things is that the world isn't safe. And then our subconscious mind is going to then, create from that information, and it's going to look different for all of us. Right? So yes, it is the result of our subconscious mind. It also says happen to you or around you. So then we also understand the collective subconscious mind. Right? That there are things this is why there are things, this takes us to Eckhart Tolle's work, right? With the pain body. And we can also even think psychologically. You were talking about Jung when we were talking about
Carl Jung,
right? Right? And the collective unconscious. We recognize that there's this subconscious space that we're all creating from. And we have the opportunity as humanity, and I've talked about this in previous sermons, right, of planting an idea in mind of a world that works for everyone. Right, planting an idea in mind of believing that a world exists and can exist where unarmed black men are not murdered by the police, right? But we actually have accepted, unfortunately, that idea, right? We've accepted that idea and unconsciously, unfortunately, expect it.
Right. And so, a lot of times in coaching, people say, well, I don't know why I do this or why I think this way or why I act this way. And we get caught up in the why, but this is giving you an understanding of what the collective why is, right? The subconscious mind is just an absorber.
Yeah.
It's just fertile ground that things get planted in. It doesn't weed out. Right? It's the subconscious mind.
Right.
We use our conscious mind to uproot things so that what's planted in the subconscious mind are things that we want.
Absolutely.
Right? And so from 0 to 6, all kinds of information has been implanted with no one to filter it out, no caregiver, because they got their own things that are planted in their subconscious minds, right? And so we can see how that this is, it's just showing us how it works.
Right.
It's not judging how it works. It's not judging you, right? It's just saying, if you want to know why you think the way you think, things have been planted in the subconscious mind, either by you or the world around you, that have just been accepted.
Exactly. And this process, as he wrote in the previous section, this is the process of how it works. Seed is planted into the ground, right? And the ground judges not what type of seed, right? It's the same thing, right? As within, so without, as above, so below. And he goes on in this next section, and we're going to have to close here. You were born as intelligence in a universe of intelligence to unfold, evolve, and create as intelligence. Unfortunately, the world does not believe this. So we spend the first 18 years of life, this is really true, having knowledge crammed into us. Our value to the world is based on how many facts we know. we are not considered as intelligence. Rather, we are considered as humans who need to be made intelligent. As adults, we assume we are intelligent for we have diplomas to prove it, right? But that may not truly mean that we are intelligence acting intelligently. Right? And so there's all these things that have been planted in our subconscious mind. It is unloving to speak to someone who is experiencing an illness and talk about their subconscious thoughts or get them to work on that, right?
It's unloving to think of yourself in that way. All we're doing and all he's doing is giving you the why.
Right.
So that you can plant a new idea, so that you can use this process intelligently. The subconscious mind is a beautiful thing. Right? I love how Louise Hay says the subconscious mind doesn't have a sense of humor. It's not saying that you're not funny, that there's no humor in life. It's saying that it only takes the thoughts that we give it as true.
Yeah.
It doesn't dictate whether they should be true or not. It just accepts. And that's beautiful. And it's also been one of the reasons why things have evolved the way they have. It's beautiful because that means I can put new thoughts in there. Right? It only takes what you give it.
Yeah.
If you are self-debasing, it only accepts that as true. Whether that tendency comes from you, it's not talking about that. It's not saying, oh, her mother talked to her that way, and so I'm not going to accept that. It just accepts.
Right.
If you talk to you that way, if you say, oh, I'm just this, I'm not that, it just accepts.
Right.
And it begins to create from that.
Right. And because this is the way it works, because this process exists, right, we don't need to understand it. I'm thinking about Bob Proctor, God rest his soul, the now late Bob Proctor. It's interesting to say. He would always say, I don't know how the light bulb works. I don't understand all the intricacies of electricity, but I know how to put a light bulb in and plug in the light and make use of it, right? So we don't have to question or understand at a deeper level the why of it, because we really don't know why as human beings, but we know that it is.
We don't need to know that the subconscious mind operates to know that it operates or how it operates.
Right.
But he's giving us insight into how it operates and how it operates for everyone across the board.
Exactly.
And those people that you say, oh, they never ever do this kind of work. Well, at some level, their subconscious mind, they've accepted some truths about themselves. And they never question them. And they just live from them. Yeah. And so as they are awake or asleep, they just keep creating from what they've accepted as true. And so, they may not have to go in and weed out their garden, right? Because the seeds that were already planted were good. But if the seeds in your garden are not what you want them to be, if they're not creating the flowers, speaking of spring, that you want to see, it's time to lovingly and gently uproot those thoughts in your subconscious mind and plant something else in its place, because it cannot be void. It cannot be, I'm just going to weed out everything. You have the opportunity to decide what you want, plant it there, water it, and watch it grow.
Right. And so you have to accept that this process exists, and it is. The acceptance of this process is not to lead you to shame or blame.
Not at all.
The acceptance of this process is to then support you in making new decisions, new choices that you recognize, oh, there's a process, right? If you didn't know gardening existed, but now that you know it exists, oh, you mean I can grow tomatoes in my backyard, right? Oh, I can have roses. I can choose to have roses in my backyard because this process exists. I don't have to, be a special person or live in some special place.
And I don't have to go to school to, be a horticulturalist.
Right.
I can just learn and do it.
And that's why the understanding the process of the subconscious mind has to be highlighted so that we can accept it and now deliberately use it. Intentionally use it, beneficially use it, constructively use it, lovingly use it, successfully use it, right?
Absolutely.
That's why.
And we know that things have happened to all of us. Unwanted things. Unwanted experiences, unwanted thoughts have been planted. And now we can spend our time creating the garden that we want. And for all of us, we must be compassionate with ourselves for what we did not know, were not
Right.
taught,
Right.
did not understand
For whatever reason.
for whatever reason. And we lovingly, compassionately let go of what no longer serves us.
Yep.
Right? That's the only reason we teach these things, because we can no longer go around blaming ourselves, putting ourselves in that position of unworthiness when life is meant to be joyful, enjoyed, and extended in a creative, loving way, in an easy way. We want to support you in that, and that's part of why we talk about stage 3 and 4. We're not going to be stuck in what we didn't do correctly, or what we didn't learn correctly, or what someone else put in there. We have the power, and we're making the choice, the decision to do differently now.
Yes. So your assignment is to read chapter 2 for this week and be prepared. That's where we will start next week. Continue to take notes, send in any questions, send it to truthsunday@celebration.sc.org. You've seen the email on the screen throughout the broadcast. And if you would like to give to CSC, it's very easy to do that. You also see the information here on your screen. You can go to our website, celebrationsc.org/give, or you can text your dollar amount to 347-744-9500. There's a $10 minimum to text to give. Most importantly, give what feels good. Right, this is all interrelated as you understand that the idea of the subconscious mind and focusing on what you want and versus what you don't want. And so if you're giving from a place of, oh, well, I just love PG and PY and I feel bad that I didn't give anything last week. I need to get, well, but see, then that's the energy that you, right? Or if you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, or I'm a double up next week, or I'm doubling up this week because I missed the previous week, or, oh, this is not enough. I wish I could give more, but all of that energy is what's going in the subconscious mind, and that's what's actually going to grow in your mental garden. So we give what feels good. I'm excited about this number. I chose this amount. I feel good about it. It feels easy to give it. I'm enjoy giving it. I'm not worried about giving it. I don't think about it again, and I benefit from it. It is that energy that then allows us to affirm all the money that I use.
All the money that I use
Returns to me multiplied.
returns to me multiplied.
In a never-ending cycle.
A never-ending cycle
Of increase.
and
enjoyment.
And enjoyment.
To that we say amen.
Amen.
Ashe.
Ashe.
And so it is.
So it is.
We look forward to many of you joining us on Wednesday morning for the prayer call at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. If we don't see you in the prayer call, then we will gather together next Sunday, which is Easter Sunday, which is God Talk Sunday, and we will continue with the masterclass, studying chapter 2, which is equally powerful. We look forward to continuing to go deeper and expanding with each and every one of you. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, or enjoy the remainder of your week. We love you much.
Love you.
All right. Bye for now.
Bye for now.